And now, from approximately coast to coast, Bob Elliott and Ray Goulding take pleasure in presenting the Bob and Ray Public Radio Program.
Thank you. And to begin this one, we welcome back two dear friends of ours from days gone by, the non-identical twin band leaders, Claude and Clyde, the McBeebe twins. How are you, men?
Well, just fine, Bob and Ray. It's a great pleasure to be here on your National Public Radio program.
Well, it's a pleasure for us to be here, too. What have you been doing since we saw you last?
Well, we've been touring with our orchestra. Playing college proms and series of one-nighters.
We've been keeping busy.
Occupied.
By ourselves. Did you get out to the West Coast?
No, we didn't get that far.
Didn't get that far.
We got about as far as Suffern, New York. And we had trouble with the bus. Well, I don't want to go into all that. It's a big story.
Okay, well, suffice to say you've said hello, and it's good to see you again.
Well,
good luck.
Always a pleasure. Good luck. Good luck to you.
And we want to remind you, too, that our two fine sponsors are still with us. Einbinder, the greatest name in flypaper, and Monongahela.
Right. And who?
Monongahela, the metal foundry that casts its ingots with the housewife in mind. And right now, we inaugurate a new public affairs feature called Bankruptcy. A program designed to provide a platform from which businessmen who are on the verge of bankruptcy because of bad breaks on management may make a plea to the public and thus perhaps avert financial disaster. Our guest today, Mr. Willard Huffer, trolley car broker. Welcome to Bankruptcy, Mr. Huffer.
Thank you. Which microphone should I plead into here?
Well, that one you're on is okay. Before you start your plea, though, would you fill us in on your problem and how it got to be a problem?
Well, certainly, Bob. Would you prefer I call you Mr. Elliott?
I'd prefer Mr. Elliott, yeah.
All right, fine, Mr. Elliott. I have 150 completely refurbished old trolley cars with brand new fluorescent lighting inside, and I'd like to sell them at a reasonable price.
Oh, where'd you get hold of 150 old trolley cars, sir?
Well, it's quite a long story, and a sad one, too, but briefly, I got them for $500 apiece in city auctions a couple of years ago.
What prompted you to do that?
Well, some clown sitting next to me at the auction urged me to buy them. He said he knew some foreign guy from one of those undeveloped countries who'd pay 10 times what I paid for them to use in his country, see?
And what happened then?
Well, this clown disappeared after I'd bought them. And I spent the next year collaring delegations from different backward countries as they walked in and out of the United Nations.
You were trying to unload 150 old trolley cars on them. Were they at all interested?
Very little. It seemed that all of these undeveloped countries planned on skipping the trolley car phase in their development and go right into buses and planes, see? Although I got close to a sale in the city of Kathmandu in Nepal.
Oh, can you tell us how that happened to fall through?
Well, I got as far as painting Garnak Ventura Dingwan Kathmandu San on the side of the trolleys.
What does that mean?
The City of Kathmandu Transportation Service. I looked it up in the public library. And then, Mr. Elliott, the roof fell in.
Nepalese money got tight, huh?
No. Kathmandu is situated in the Himalaya Mountains, the world's highest. And saying that Kathmandu is a bit hilly would be like saying the Empire State Building is cute.
Yeah. Or that the Grand Canyon is adorable.
That's right.
Well, how did all this affect the deal?
Well, at the last minute, the powers that be, namely the High Lama, he decided that they needed cable cars like your San Francisco has.
Oh, that was a tough break. Practically signed, sealed, and delivered, and then poof. Did you try any other approaches to unloading the trolleys?
Oh, I tried everything. I spoke to the Disneyland people about putting them in a trolley land.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to sell them as diners, but they're using those big aluminum ones for that now, you know. Yeah. I even tried to sell them as scrap, but being mostly wood, they're worthless.
And so, on the verge of bankruptcy now, you're holding down 3 jobs to pay for the cost of keeping them in a railroad yard, and you're desperate. And this is why you make your plea, Mr. Huffer. Just keep it short, if you will.
Thank you. Anyone interested in 150 refurbished trolley cars with the Garnak Ventura Dingwan Kathmandu sign written on the sides, can get in touch with me through the Bob and Ray Public Service Department.
Thank you, Mr. Willard Huffer. You're a trolley car broker who really needs help. Good luck. And friends, tune in next time when another person whose business is on the rocks pleads for help on bankruptcy.
Now, once again, it's time for Grand Motel, a speck of a place, a heck of a place on Route 14 near Hadleyville, where the mountains meet the sky and living as easy as pie. As our story begins today, we find uncompromising owner Leonard Humphrey hanging a new calendar on the wall of his office. Suddenly, the door opens, and a weary stranger steps across the threshold of Grand Motel.
Well, come right in, stranger. You're just in time to use the new office calendar I make available to all the guests here. Feel free to drop by the office anytime during your stay and look up as many dates as you want. Absolutely no charge.
Now, that sounds like a good deal. But I don't want to be rushing to becoming a guest here until I know more about the place. You see, I'm allergic to a lot of things, like dust on the carpet. So I have to be sure you'll give me enough clean bath towels to cover all the rugs. Otherwise, I sneeze and can't get a wink of sleep.
Well, I'm sorry, friend, but I couldn't possibly give you enough clean towels to cover the whole floor. I'm up half the night doing the laundry as it is.
But, Daddy, wait. Now, please don't be so obstinate and bullheaded till I can get there and talk this over with you.
Well, I don't think it's bullheaded to tell a person I won't put 50 or 60 clean towels on the floor for him. But if you want to talk it over, I got no objections.
Gee, I'm sure I've seen that great-looking chick someplace before. Is she Elizabeth Taylor or Princess Grace or...
Neither one. She's my daughter.
Oh, Daddy, I'm so thankful I got here before this gentleman left in a huff. You mustn't be so uncompromising with him when he need his money to buy a new life preserver for the swimming pool. Board of Safety inspectors will never approve it as it is.
Well, I don't know why we need a life preserver for a swimming pool that's so full of cracks we can't put water in it. But you keep up on the safety rules better than I do, Naomi, so I'll make an exception in this gentleman's case and put clean towels all over the floor so he won't sneeze.
Oh, that's more like it. And be sure to hang towels all over that shrubbery out in the yard, too. Like I said, I'm allergic to stuff in the air, and shrubbery's really murder.
Well, that's too bad, but I couldn't possibly put towels over all our shrubbery. It would take all the linen we own for that.
Daddy, now you just mustn't be so obstinate. We need this man's business desperately. Without a new life preserver, they could make us tear up the swimming pool even if it doesn't have water in it. You know it.
All right, Naomi. It'll cost more to launder the linens than we can make on the room, but I'll use all our good stuff to cover the shrubbery after I've finished covering the floor.
Well, I'm glad you're finally taking some sound advice from that good-looking chick. Just wish I could remember where I'd seen her before. Did you say she's Raquel Welch or Aunt Margaret? Or...
No, neither one. She's my daughter.
Gee, I doubt it. If that's who she was, I never would have seen her before. But we can discuss that later. Now, what kind of stuffing do you have in your pillows? Better not be chicken feathers, because they make me sneeze like crazy.
Well, then how come you're not sneezing now? There's a chicken farm right next door, and I haven't even run over there yet and thrown any of my clean towels over the chickens for you.
Now, Daddy, please, now you mustn't make smart alecky remarks to the man. We need his business something awful, and if it'll make him decide to stay here, we can certainly go out and buy a foam rubber pillow for him.
Well, this is all eating into the profit when I only get $6 a night for our rooms. But we aim to please, so whatever you say, stranger.
Well, that's the way I like to hear you talk. Incidentally, you never answered my question.
She's nobody you've seen before. She's my daughter.
No, not that question. I give up trying to get a straight answer to that one. All I want to know is what kind of stuffing you have in your pillows.
Good grief, that's what Naomi and I have been standing here talking about. We were saying we've got feather pillows now.
Oh, well, I can't stand feather pillows. They'll make me sneeze.
I know, you said that, so Naomi and I said we'd get you a foam rubber pillow, and you indicated that was fine.
Oh, I don't know how I could have indicated that. You've got such a rotten disposition that I wouldn't want to stay here anyway, no matter what kind of pillows you have. Goodbye.
Well, I'm sorry, Naomi. I don't know what gets into me sometimes.
Has uncompromising owner Leonard Humphrey's uncompromising nature finally driven him out of the motel business? Or would a new life preserver for the swimming pool have helped much anyway? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when another weary traveler arrives at Grand Motel.
We're happy to announce today that we've just added a new member to our Bob and Ray investigative reporting staff. He's Artie Skirmahorn, and he's ready right now with his first expose, I think. So come in, Artie.
This is Artie Skirmahorn outside the main office door of the Frozen Frost Ice Cube Tray Company in Rockford, Illinois. In my hand, I hold a potentially lethal ice cube tray, just like the ones that may be in your own refrigerator. The lower portion of this particular tray is covered with sponge rubber, a material that tends to become wet and stick to the bottom of any metal freezer compartment. And that's exactly what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1981, when a young child strained several of his internal organs while trying to remove ice cubes from the family refrigerator. And so far, officials of this company have refused to answer any questions.
Oh, hello there. You must be that investigative reporter.
Yes, and I'm on the air.
I'm the president of Frozen Frost, G.G. Woodsey. I tried to phone you back about arranging an interview, but your secretary said you don't take calls from chowderheads.
Well, that must be the machine that answers when I'm out.
I understand. Come on in.
Thanks.
Hey, what's that in your hand? Looks like a Model 614. I haven't seen one of those old-timers in years.
You mean this type of tray is no longer in production?
No, they were made for just a short time back in the 40s.
Out of production for more than 30 years, ladies and gentlemen, yet they still may be lurking in your home. As recently as 1981, a little tyke in Tulsa, Oklahoma, missed days of nursery school because of his tragic encounter with this product. And he may have been only the one child among many whose parents dared to come forward.
Would you like some coffee or something?
Certainly not. Mr. Woodsey, if this model was discontinued after a short time, you must have known of the deadly danger.
Well, I don't think the industry ever felt it was in danger. Consumers were just angry because these space dividers don't come up high enough. Makes the water all freeze together into one big globby ice cube.
I meant the hazardous sponge rubber on the bottom.
Oh, that was supposed to keep the kitchen drain board from chipping when you set the tray down. I guess it wasn't too popular.
Well, it was popular enough for an innocent child in Tulsa to hurt himself. In his case, may have been only one of many.
What is this you keep mentioning about a child being hurt by an ice cube tray?
You know about the case, Woodsey. Didn't you feel personally responsible for recalling every one of those trays?
No, I couldn't have done that.
Couldn't have done it? Well, what kind of irresponsibility is that?
Well, I had no authority. After all, our firm wasn't the one that made those trays.
Really? Are you sure?
Yes, I'm quite sure. They were turned out by... what was their name?
It'd help if you could remember. I'd like to question some of their people.
No, you couldn't do that. They've been out of business for years.
Oh, well, as you say, these things were only made for a short time anyway.
That's right, and they were never popular.
I'm sure of it. So, that about wraps up this investigative report from here. Now, this is Artie Skirmahorn, returning you to Bob and Ray.
And now here's a message from the makers of Einbinder's flypaper that will come as welcome news to many of you. Friends, nobody likes to hang strips of flypaper that form curlicues and gradually roll themselves back up to the ceiling again. As loyal Americans, you're entitled to a flypaper that hangs straight down and remains that way for weeks on end. And that's exactly what you get when you ask your local pest control supplier for Einbinder, the brand you've gradually grown to trust over the course of 3 generations. Now another chapter in the endless story of intrigue as it unfolds among the prominent families of Garish Summit. There in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As our action begins, it's Christmas Eve at the Murchfield estate, and the servants are holding their annual holiday party in the root cellar near the main house. Suddenly, the voice of Lloyd the gardener can be heard speaking above the festive gaiety.
I sure hate these Christmas parties Miss Agatha makes us hold every year in the root cellar. You know, it's below zero in here.
Oh, I shouldn't be too critical of Miss Agatha Lloyd. She's a good sort. Just pull up one of those bags of turnips and sit down. We're going to sing carols soon.
Keep your shirt on, Wilfred. I'm trying to find an ice pick to chip off a piece of the eggnog. Sure would help if Miss Agatha put some electric lights down here.
Now, Lloyd, Miss Agatha's a good sort. Just try to get into the spirit of the holiday. And...
Oh, my word, Lloyd. You fell right in my lap.
Well, do stop flailing around in the dark and sit down in one of those turnip bags, Lloyd.
I still need an ice pick, but I give up. It really ticks me off that we have to celebrate Christmas down here. I can just picture the family up in the main house, all comfy.
Confound it, I've rung 3 times for the butler to come freshen my brandy. Where is that slothful wretch?
Well, now, Rodney, just sit down in your wing chair and relax. I told the servants they could have 45 minutes for their Christmas party. So Wilfred's probably down in the cellar with the others.
Seems to me you're terribly lax with the hired help during the holidays, Mother. I was especially upset when I got your memo today ordering me to close the lead mine an hour early just because it's Christmas Eve.
Well, I know it causes a drop in those production charts that you keep, but your brother Caldwell said it was cheaper to close early than to risk another riot like the miners staged last Christmas.
I might have known that any scheme promoting idleness would have been Caldwell's idea. Confound it, the servants still don't answer the bell. They're probably all drunk down there by now. I can just picture them.
Now, don't bother thawing your eggnog over that lighted match, Wilfred. I just found it's been made with sour milk. Can you beat that? Miss Agatha made our Christmas eggnog with sour milk.
There, Lloyd. I'm sure it was unintentional. Miss Agatha's a good sort. Let's sing carols.
Hey, you know, I've just about had it up to here with you, Wilfred.
Up to where? I can't see in the dark.
I'm pointing at my throat.
Oh.
I just don't understand why you always stick up for Miss Agatha when she makes us hold our party in this damp cellar. Even the turnips down here are rotten. Can't you smell them?
Yes, but I'm sure Miss Agatha didn't know that...
Are those rotten turnips? I thought it was Lloyd's aftershave I smelled.
This is no time for sarcasm, Lucille. I was just saying that Miss Agatha is a good sort and fond of us all.
Knock it off, Wilfred. Miss Agatha's an old bat. You're the only one who likes her, and I often wonder why.
Hopefully you'll never learn why. I can just picture the problems it would cause if anybody ever found out.
Hey, great Scott, I just found out why that slimy little butler is always fawning over Mother.
Well, don't shout, Caldwell. The Airedale was sleeping by the fire and you startled it. I don't know why you came here on Christmas Eve anyway, demanding to see all your mother's legal papers.
It was because I couldn't contain my curiosity about her early life, Mr. Pardue. And look what I found. A document dated 1943 that makes a British war orphan her legally adopted son. That son, now grown to manhood, is our family butler, Wilfred Llewellyn Nimby.
Will Wilfred freeze in the root cellar before he can assert his rightful claim to a room in the main house? Can Mr. Pardue be bribed to destroy the only known copy of his adoption papers? And what about the Airedale that only pretends to be asleep? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when we hear Caldwell say...
You say you're Spanky Murchfield from Fresno?
That's next time on Garish Summit. A new play opened here on Broadway last night entitled The Tender T-Bone, I believe it was. It stars a veteran of stage, screen, radio, television, the orchestra world, practically any phase of show business, Barry Campbell. Unfortunately, the play closed last night, too, but we'd like to have you meet a great guy and a great performer, Barry Campbell.
Thank you.
Barry,
It's a pleasure to be here.
sorry to hear about the closing last night.
Yeah.
This was the first Broadway show, I believe, in which you attempted to dance. Is that right?
That's right.
I say attempted because one of the critics pointed out in his review this morning that you stumbled across the stage much in the manner of a bull in a china shop. I think that's the way he expressed it.
Yeah, he has a great way with words. No, actually, what happened was I tripped on this small scatter rug, see, just inside the foyer of the girl's apartment.
Well, this is the love interest, the girl you play opposite?
Yeah, that's right. I'm supposed to, fall in love with this kid. Incidentally, this girl, we've been in rehearsals so much now. We've started rehearsals in February and intensive rehearsals in April.
Oh, it's a long time.
And we're around together so much that by the time the curtain went up last night, I couldn't stand the sight of her. I couldn't go through any of that love stuff, the kissing or the hugging. Right?
That must have thrown the other actors off the pace quite a bit, didn't it?
Well, not as much as when I forgot my lines.
I was going to get to that. That same reviewer pointed out a little further on in his review that there was a time, I think, in the second act when for nearly 20, 25 minutes nobody said a word.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How do you cover up for a thing like that?
Well, I had a prop newspaper there that I picked up and read.
You were luckier than the rest of the cast, huh?
Well, I thought so until 3 people got up out of the audience and came right up on the stage. And one singled me out. I was scared there for a minute.
I should think so. Did the rest of the audience realize that wasn't part of the show?
No, they were walking up and down the aisles. They were visiting with one another. They were having a wonderful evening in the theater.
I guess so. Well, I hope your next effort is more successful, Barry Campbell, and we'll certainly...
Well, I leave tomorrow on an exchange tour through Europe.
Oh.
Yeah, we fly from New York, we go over to Belgium, and then we go up to Switzerland, down here to Italy, and then back up here to Germany, and then we go on over to Russia, and then we get down to the Greek, beautiful tour through the Greek Isles.
It is.
And then we wind up back here in White Plains.
Certainly is. It's an energetic tour you've got arranged for you, and you come by and tell us about it next time you're in town.
I had to be back the end of June. We have a recording date with my new all-girl orchestra.
Oh,
We're going to record a new album.
Going back in the band business.
And we feature the theremin. Now, this is an electrically charged stainless steel pole.
I know it is.
That you play by holding your hand close to it or removing it.
Right.
Closer your hand is, you get a different notes of the
seen that.
scale, you see. We're going to play lush, dentist office type music on this album, and we think it'll be a big hit.
Thank you very much, Barry Campbell, star of stage, screen, radio, and television, for dropping by here. Important news right now of the big anniversary sale in progress at your local Monongahela Metal Foundry showroom. Every extra shiny steel ingot in stock is marked down a full 20% during this great event. It's Monongahela's way of saying thanks for making this the biggest year we've enjoyed since way back in 1976. And now, a big year at the Foundry can mean big savings for you if you act quickly. Have your flat car towed down to a conveniently located Monongahela showroom and stock up today.
And now it's time for the adventures of Charlie Chew, famed Oriental sleuth, as he and his number one son attempt to solve the case of the ghostly gunman.
I know it sounds unbelievable, Chew, but that's the word I get from the crime lab. The body of wealthy Oliver Wendell Osgood was found out here on the terrace, but there isn't a trace of evidence that the killer came through the Osgood apartment to shoot him, and there's no other way to get to the terrace.
May I interrupt to ask Inspector one vital question?
Gee willikers, Pop. The police admit that this case has them baffled, and yet only 5 minutes after you're on the scene, you've already thought of a vital question to ask.
Number one son has mouth like rusty hinge of gate. Continue to swing back and forth, making noise, despite all effort to keep it shut.
Gee, Pop, I don't know why you always put me down. I'm just enthusiastic about getting to help you solve a big murder case.
Number one son can best help illustrious father by waiting downstairs in building lobby. Play doorman. We split tips 50-50.
Chew, what was that question you wanted to ask?
Inspector revealed that killer did not enter or leave apartment where body of victim was found on terrace. Therefore, it is not logical to assume that shot was fired from apartment next door or possibly across street.
Holy cow, Pop. I sure don't see why that would be logical. If you found a wild duck shot out of season, you wouldn't assume that it was a duck across the street who'd shot him.
Number one son, like river that never freeze over in winter. Mouth stay open year round.
Chew, I want you to make that kid shut up before he drives us both bananas. But I'm also kind of anxious to solve this murder case, and I'm afraid your theory of the shot being fired from across the street just couldn't be right. Our ballistics expert says the bullet entered from close range.
In such case, Charlie Chew saddened that Inspector does not carry thinking one step further. If bullet could not have entered victim at close range while he was standing here, and killer was standing across street, then is it not logical that victim was also across street with killer at time of death?
No, that's not logical at all. The body was found right here, and nobody could have carried it in without leaving evidence.
Ah, so logic of Inspector seemed to win best 2 falls out of 3 over logic of Charlie Chew.
No, wait, Pop. Suppose the victim was killed somewhere else, like you said, but then his body was left on this terrace by some method that didn't require the killer to walk through the apartment. Say, for instance, it was dropped here from the roof.
Charlie Chew pleased to observe that the blabbermouth's son finally speak wisdom inherited from father's side of family.
Well, I guess that may sound like wisdom until you hear that my men have already checked out the roof of this building, and they're positive that no one has been up there for months.
Oh, so. Very interesting.
Hey, Pop, then that can only mean you had the facts correct, but backwards. If the victim was shot at close range and nobody else was here, then that means he was the one preparing to shoot somebody across the street when his gun went off accidentally and he shot himself instead. This victim wasn't really a victim. He was a killer who never got a chance to kill his intended victim, if you see what I mean.
Charlie Chew not only see what number one son mean, but praise. Clever deduction as well. Events merely reflect wisdom of honorable ancestor who say, at any given time, those who are not here must all be in some other place.
Gee whiz, Pop. Our ancestors were really loaded with wisdom. It's too bad there aren't any of them around today. We could sure use one as a police inspector.
Well, gee, I don't know. Anything else we have to cover here today?
No?
No, that's it then.
That puts the lid on this Bob and Ray Public Radio program, as we say.
Except to thank those who helped lend a note of festivity to the proceedings.
Yes, there was Larry Josephson, friend of the oppressed. He developed and produced our show for the Radio Foundation.
Associate producer was Marjorie Van Halderen, one of the few here who remember that this is the year of the dog in the Chinese calendar. Joe Lopes was our engineer.
Stan Free played an American-made electric organ.
And funding, in part, from the National Endowment for the Arts.
And the New York State Council on the Arts.
Now, this is Ray Goulding reminding you to write if you get work.
Bob Elliott reminding you to hang by your thumbs.
For a free picture of Bob and Ray, send a stamped, self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116. That's Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116.
Thank you.
Thank you, friends. Very kind.
Thanks very much.
This program was independently produced by the Radio Foundation.
And now, from approximately coast to coast, it's the Bob and Ray Public Radio Show.
Thanks very much, and welcome again to another show and another public service feature, actually, called Speaking Out. It's a portion of our show where we give you, the listening public, a chance to phone in with your opinion on a controversial issue of the day.
That's right, friends. Now, we're donating our broadcast facilities and airtime to this worthy project. And we don't receive an award from some prestigious organization for our work then we'll certainly know how those things are all rigged by corrupt people.
Well, I don't think we should give the idea we're putting on the public service feature just because we expect to get an award.
Well, I can't think of any other reason why we'd do it.
It'd be nice if we did.
We're certainly not giving up our time to a bunch of long-winded crackpots just for the fun of it.
No, we're doing it because that's the American way. And I see from the flashing light on the phone that we have our first caller, and I wonder if you'd give us your name, please.
Yes. My name is Truman Capote.
You're not the same one, I assume.
You know, it's odd you should ask. My mother used to come up with that same question, and I never knew what she was talking about either.
Well, let's just drop it and move on to the controversial issue of the day that you'd like to give us your opinion about.
Well, I don't think my little boy Rupert should be required to wear one of those reflecting flea collars to school.
You mean kind that is supposed to make dogs and cats easier to see in the dark?
That's right. Now, the ones they sell for the larger breeds are just about the right size to fit a 9-year-old kid, but that's beside the point. It's a constitutional issue.
You think it violates the child's rights by humiliating him, is that right?
Well, I don't really mind having Rupert humiliated. I think it's up to the parents to decide whether they want their kids to have fleas.
Well, I suppose that'll eventually have to be decided by the Supreme Court. And while we wait for that decision, let's chat with another caller here on line 2. Could I have your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Mrs. Odie Chilstrom, and I'm calling from Kendallville, Indiana.
Nice to hear from somebody out that way, Miss Chilstrom.
Well, I can't imagine why you'd say that. I hear from people around here every day, and most of them, they bore me to tears.
Hope you didn't call in just to give us a negative opinion about your neighbors, huh?
No, I have a much more important matter to discuss. It's my opinion that a wife should be able to collect on her husband's life insurance when he runs off with another woman.
Are you saying you and your husband are separated, but he's still alive? Is that it?
Well, he's still alive temporarily. That's because I can't scrape up the bus fare to go to California and get my hands around his neck. I need his life insurance money to do that.
Well, I guess the company might pay off in advance if you'd guarantee in writing that you'll take care of the situation, but I don't think it'll become a standard clause in policies anyway. Let's move along to a quick call right here. Your name, please.
Hello? Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm Harvey Netzinger. Wait till I turn down my radio.
Your radio on, Harvey?
Yes.
Well, have you turned it down?
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
I live under the big bridge on Interstate 95 just after you leave town.
I know the one you mean. What's your opinion, sir?
It's my opinion that my brother-in-law, Millard L. Eubanks, is a chowderhead and an nincompoop, in addition to being a lazy parasite.
Well, I'm afraid that's not really a controversial issue of the day.
I'm glad to hear you say that, and I guess you're right that most people who know Millard agree with me completely.
Well, I didn't mean I agree with you when I said the matter wasn't controversial, you know.
Look, friend, there's no need for you to soft-pedal your feelings and straddle the fence on this thing. It's a free country, and you got the same right as the next person to say that Millard L. Eubanks is a complete fool.
Well, all right. Still something I'd like to think about first, but thanks for bringing it to our attention, and I hope you other listeners will have something equally thought-provoking to discuss on the next edition of Speaking Out.
Now, here's a money-saving tip from the makers of Einbinder flypaper. Friends, if you're in the habit of taking your flypaper down at bedtime and putting it in a drawer because you think insects sleep at night, it may be costing you more in the long run.
Flies not only remain awake while you're sleeping, they may even multiply and create more flies. So play it safe and leave your flypaper hanging 24 hours a day.
But be sure it's the brand you know is working for you around the clock. Genuine Einbinder flypaper, a name you've grown to trust over the course of 3 generations. And now, through the magic of live radio, we again join Folly Gerard in a remote corner of America as he continues his tour down the byways. Today, Folly has parked his deluxe motorhome in Langley, South Carolina, to bring us this week's Homespun Report.
For many of those who are growing older in America, the sunset years have instead become the gray and foreboding years. For them, the familiar places are gone and the familiar ways have changed. But here in Langley, South Carolina, a happy and productive life goes on for the senior citizens thanks to the efforts of one man, a man named Kyle Rumsey. Kyle bought the old Langley flour mill when it closed in 1979, and he's turned it into a center of activity for those between 65 and 80.
Well, actually, we have some people well beyond 80, Mr. Gerard. One dear lady walks 2 miles to come here every day, and she's 94 years old, bless her heart.
Yes, bless her heart indeed. And Mr. Rumsey, I know what you've done here fulfills your dream of long standing. You've provided a productive gathering place for the older people of your community who would otherwise feel useless and discarded.
Well, that's right. I used to sit on my porch every morning and watch the retired people walk down to our little village park, and they'd sit out there in all kinds of weather and play dominoes. And I figured it must make them feel pretty useless and discarded.
But then you saw your chance to help those in the 65 to 80 group when the old flour mill closed down in this building right here.
Yeah, except as I said, some in the 65 to 80 group are as old as 94.
Exactly. But now, where the grindstones once turned grain into flour, Kyle Rumsey has carefully placed recreational equipment, and it's available to Langley's senior citizens every single day.
Well, that's correct, and I appreciate you referring to these knitting machines as recreational equipment. That's what I've taught the old folks to call them, too.
Well, they truly do provide recreational therapy for the elderly. I suppose they spend their days here at the machines, weaving little gifts for their children and grandchildren.
No, what they weave on the machines is cotton fabric in large bolts. And their grandchildren wouldn't have any use for that. I can sell it to clothing manufacturers as far away as Cincinnati.
Well, then what you've set up here for the old people is almost like a real commercial knitting mill.
Yes, in fact, I think you could say it's exactly like a real commercial knitting mill. The old folks are required to clock in at 7 a.m., and they work at their looms until 5 in the evening, unless we have a big order that keeps them here later.
Well, that seems like kind of a long day for the elderly.
Oh, I don't know. Most old people get up early anyway, so I think starting at 7 is good for them.
Prevents them from having time to think about growing old, I guess.
Well, that's right. And then, too, they get several work breaks during the day. I have to shut off the machines, you see, whenever the air inside the building gets so filled with cotton lint that the workers can't breathe.
I guess that's a problem in any building where cotton is woven, huh?
Well, not in the newer buildings. This one was put up around 1880, and it has no ventilation, so I have to turn off the machines to let the lint settle every 2 or 3 hours, but, I don't mind. The old people don't get paid for that anyway.
Oh. You mean they get paid for the time they spend at their looms? They don't do this purely for recreation?
No, at first I ran the mill strictly as a recreational program, but then some enforcement agents from the State Labor Department were out here, and it was their thinking that the old-timers would feel more useful if I paid them.
I suppose it might seem almost like a sweatshop here if they didn't receive at least the legal minimum wage.
Well, it's a little like a sweatshop anyway, because I don't exactly pay a minimum wage. See, it's all piecework. 30 cents for each bolt of cloth that a worker turns out.
Well, how much can your people earn under an arrangement like that?
Well, if they were experienced textile workers, they could clear $1 an hour easily, but older people slow down a lot, so I guess they average about $2 for a 10-hour day.
But, of course, their main reward comes from feeling useful and productive.
That's right. I keep reminding them that they weren't getting paid anything at all for playing dominoes in the park.
That's very true. So it is that Kyle Rumsey has brought a renewed purpose into the lives of many in Langley, South Carolina, who had once felt they were society's cast-offs. They came to this old brick building from miles around each dawn. They leave at day's end with money in their pockets and a smile on their elderly lips, thanks to Kyle Rumsey, a man who had a dream and who made his dream come true. And now we pack up and head out of Langley to see what other stories are waiting to be told down the byways. Until our next stop, this is Farley Gerard saying so long for now. Yes, sir. How many will you be, please?
I'll be one.
You'll be one. Sit right here, sir. I'll get your menu.
Thank you. One alone.
Here you are, sir. Anytime you're ready.
Thank you. Oh, say, do you have a kiddies menu?
A what?
A kiddies menu.
Well, this is our regular menu. We do have a children's menu, but...
Could I look at it, please?
Well, why?
Well, I don't want to order from this regular menu.
You mean to say you want to order from the children's menu?
That's right. I like children's portions, and I like to have my meat cut up for me.
Well, you're an adult. I mean, this is kind of irregular, isn't it?
But that's what I like to eat. Could I have it, please?
Wouldn't you feel kind of silly ordering from a children's menu?
Not at all. And look, I wish you wouldn't make so much out of it. People are looking at me.
Well, I'll have to ask the manager. I don't know whether we can let you order from that or not. Wait a minute.
One alone.
All right, here you are. The manager says it's okay.
Oh, good. Oh, boy.
You like the picture of the big bunny rabbit on it?
Yeah. Let me see. I'll have this Humpty Dumpty egg salad, Little Miss Muffet curds and whey pudding, Old Mother boneless chicken.
Don't bend the bunny rabbit menu, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's what I'll have. This here.
What?
Turkey lucky with gravy, cat and fiddle mashed squash.
And may I suggest the silver bell and cockle shell salad, sir?
Okay. And then for dessert, I think I'll have curds and whey pudding with a lollipop in it.
All right, I'll be right back.
Oh, and for openers, bring me a Shirley Temple, straight up. And now, let us return again to Gary Summit and its endless story of intrigue among the socially prominent. There in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As action begins, it's Halloween. Wealthy Dowager Agatha Murchfield is preparing to receive trick-or-treaters in her Amelia Earhart costume. Suddenly, her weak-willed son Rodney enters the room wearing a powder blue rabbit suit. Rodney speaks.
Mother, why must the principal heir to a $5 billion fortune keep wearing the same Halloween costume he had when he was a child?
Well, it still appears to fit, now that I've had the seams let out a bit. It's not my fault that you grew up to be a little shrimp just like your father.
Well, I just hope none of the people I deal with in the world of commerce come to the door this evening. I think it makes an executive seem less forceful once his colleagues have seen him in a rabbit suit.
Rodney, no one comes to the door on Halloween except the neighbor children. And I'm sure none of the top executives you deal with during the day are out begging for goodies in silly costumes tonight.
No, I think they were all going to the masquerade party at the country club. I know that's where my brother Caldwell went, dressed as a swashbuckler. I would have preferred an evening like that myself.
Well, I'm afraid you're just not the type to swashbuckle, Rodney. Besides, I need someone here to help me hand out gumdrops and lemon balls to the trick-or-treaters.
Well, as I mentioned before, Mother, I'm the principal heir to your $5 billion fortune. Why do I have to deal with trick-or-treaters when we have a whole staff of servants?
Well, I gave them all the night off so they could have their own party below stairs. And I can just imagine what a wonderful time they must be having down there.
Very well, Lloyd. If you'll hand me the apple Miss Agatha left out for us, we can gather round and bob for it now.
I can't bob for anything in this confounded monkey head, Wilfred. I'm suffocating. You know, it takes a sadistic woman like Miss Agatha to make me wear this thing every year.
Well, now, Lloyd, Miss Agatha's a good sort. I'm sure she allows me to have the Queen Victoria costume only because I might be called into service upstairs. It wouldn't be proper for a butler to appear before guests in a gorilla suit.
Well, frankly, I don't think it would look so great for a middle-aged man to serve guests looking like Queen Victoria either. Miss Agatha just picks out these dumb costumes to make fools of all of us.
Now, there, Lloyd. Miss Agatha's a good sort. Now, have some more of the grape juice and soda crackers she put out for us.
I want to play the pin the tail on the donkey.
Now, I'm afraid we won't be doing that this year, Lucille. Miss Agatha said there wasn't money enough for pins and soda crackers, too.
Boy, some party. I wish I could spend just one Halloween like Mr. Caldwell. I saw him leave for the country club in his swashbuckler's outfit, and I can just picture the great time he must be having about now.
Hey, you in the cute little swashbuckler suit. Are you Caldwell Murchfield?
Yes, but I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage. I don't recognize you at all in that convict suit and ski mask. It's a great costume.
It's not a costume, pal. I'm a convict wearing a ski mask.
Well, in that case, you'd better leave. This country club is very finicky about who it lets in. I'd rather not be seen with you myself.
Don't worry, I'm being careful nobody sees us together. The people I work for want to be very sure that what I do to you looks like an accident.
What do you mean, the people you work for? Who do you work for?
Let's just put it this way. I was sent here directly from the head office in Omaha.
Omaha? Good gravy. Then I must have been found at last by...
You guessed it, pal. You couldn't expect to hide forever.
Well, will Rodney be allowed to eat any gumdrops that are left over after the trick-or-treaters depart? Is Agatha making Lloyd wear the gorilla suit because she truly hates him? And where's the parking attendant at the country club while all this is happening? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when we hear the highway patrolman say...
There's a swashbuckler inside this gunny sack, but he's still breathing.
That's next week, when we resume our endless story of intrigue on Gary Summit.
Now we welcome you to an episode of Wingpo, the true-to-life story of a Chinese philosopher who wanders across the American frontier in search of work. As our action-packed drama begins today, Wingpo is approaching a homesteader's cabin to offer his services.
Well, howdy there, young fella. You're, kind of far away from home, ain't you?
The words you speak are true, but equally it is so that he who never journeys far from home is like the bow that can only wander where the arrow may fly.
Well, there may be some truth in that, and, look, even if there ain't, you're welcome to come in here and share a plate of beans.
Such kindness will not go unremembered, for it is rare to see the hawk display compassion for the meadowlark, even though both must share the same sky.
Uh-huh. Does that mean you don't want any beans?
No, I will eat with you, for two who share the sustenance of life together are much the same as raindrops falling from the sky. They know not where they go, and yet the fate of each is like the other's.
Say, you wouldn't happen to be that Chinese philosopher who tried to open up a new wisdom dispensary there in Junction City a while back, would you?
I am the one. But sadly, the times have become hard for the people there, and there's little money left for them to spend on philosophy. All last month, I sold only 2 parables about the owl and the dragon. Thus, I now go elsewhere in search of work.
Well, I reckon we can always use another hand around the place here. There's wood to chop, and there's...
Oh, your kindness overwhelms, but one must never chop wood, for it is a thing to be studied. In each bend and swirl of the grain, there is a story of some forgotten windstorm. And as the twig was bent, so did the tree incline.
Yeah, well, I guess a fella could study wood if he wanted to, but... See, I only got $30 a month to spend on hired help, and I was figuring on getting my kindling chopped for the winter on that.
You're a gentleman and one in need of wisdom. From you, I shall seek only $25 each month. And because I like you, I will study your wood and throw in my flute music for nothing.
Well, I reckon that's a bargain right enough. So 25 it is.
You have acted wisely. And as I've often said, he who pays his money to buy knowledge is enriched. He who buys only the labor of a man stays poor in spirit.
Harley, who in the world are you talking to out here?
I am Wingpo. I have traveled many miles seeking the ear of those who wish to hear my wisdom.
Well, I can certainly believe you've been on the road all right, all mud-caked all over the bottom of your kimono there.
I have learned to live with the dust of the trail upon my being, for he who is pure within himself is cleansed on the outside as well.
Wingpo's a philosopher, Jessica. See, I've signed him on as a hired hand to read our wood for us.
And I am grateful.
Wait, what? You signed him on to do what?
I shall explain. Within each log of wood, there is a story waiting to be told. A story often held for many years in silence. But now you shall hear each tale that the swirls and rings within the bark may have to tell.
Well, that's just about the nuttiest thing I ever heard. Of course, Harley really takes the cake for hiring you to do it. Now you just pick up your flute and get off this property.
But knowledge gained is the soul's nourishment, and the brain is like wind chimes in still
I'm going
air.
to count to 3 and then blow your head off.
No, please, no violence. I go, for it is so written in my destiny. So our hero moves on to his next adventure. Be sure to join us again soon for more action-packed excitement in the thrilling life of Wingpo. Now, in the interest of fair play, we present a rebuttal to a recent Bob and Ray editorial. A while back, our Public Service Department gave its unqualified endorsement to the Save the Whales movement. And speaking in reply now, we have with us Mr. Luther Delp.
Thank you. Not long ago, these two chuckleheads here went on
Just
the air.
a minute, Mr. Delp. I hadn't quite finished introducing you. What organization are you affiliated with?
I belong to the Elks Club and also the Veterans of Foreign Wars.
And both of those groups have come out in opposition to saving the whales, have they?
No, not that I know of.
In other words, you're not speaking on behalf of those organizations, you just belong to them.
That's correct. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, of course, and also on behalf of two gentlemen who were waiting for haircuts at the same barber shop where I got the trim last Thursday, see?
Well, Mr. Delp, our editorial department normally grants equal time only to persons with opposing views who are considered qualified spokesmen.
Well, you are trying to say that I'm not qualified just because I got my hair cut last Thursday?
No, doesn't rest on that point, but apparently somebody on our staff slipped up. But as long as you're here, why don't you just go ahead, huh?
Well, it seems like a pretty shoddy way of introducing me, but since I'm already here, I'll go ahead. Bob and Ray recently recommended that we all start saving whales, but they failed to suggest where the average person might keep a whale collection after it's saved a few of them.
Well, look, I think you and your friends missed the point.
Oh, hold it right there, pal. Did I interrupt you when you were giving your side of this thing?
No, but I think you misunderstood what Save the Whales movement is trying to do.
No, quite the contrary. You're the one who misunderstood how hard it is for working people who live in small apartments to save whales. I mean, it's not like saving stamps or matchbook covers or some other small thing that you can just stick in an album and forget about. Everybody at the barber shop agreed that a whale is a very large item.
Oh, Mr. This is getting ridiculous.
Well, I'm
really.
glad you admit it. Now, for example, you take these statistics here that I obtained at the library regarding the California gray whale of the Pacific region. Now, I think you'll agree that no one who is saving whales would consider his collection complete without a California gray. But those babies can grow up to be 60 feet long. Now, that's a fact that your staff should have checked into.
Well, I'm sure they checked
Hold it,
into
wait a
it.
minute. I'm just getting to my best part here, the argument back. The figures prove beyond all doubt that the great sulfur-bottom whale is even larger, sometimes attaining a length of 95 feet.
Mr. Delp, these statistics of yours have nothing to do with our editorial
I'm sure
position.
you're just saying that because you fancy show business people don't live in three-room apartments. Now, maybe you've got plenty of space to keep a collection of 95-foot whales. I don't know, but I only make $14,000 a year, as an apprentice floor walker, and I can't afford a big enough aquarium to indulge in a rich man's hobby.
Well, we didn't intend for saving the whales to be a hobby. That's completely against what we were
Well,
talking
I'm glad you brought up that point because the guys at the barber shop agreed it would take, well, more like a full-time job to look after a whale collection, especially if they're still alive. And some collectors would want to branch out into the sperm whale family. Now, there's another 80 feet of your apartment used up.
Our editorial didn't suggest anyone start keeping a whale collection. Save the whale just means that we want to protect them from being hunted commercially.
Oh, well, I didn't understand it that way.
Now, you can see how those figures you assembled on the size of the various breeds and the size of your apartment are all immaterial.
Well,
right?
I feel kind of silly. So, can I just move on to my other editorial reply? That's about men who work as meter maids being called meter guys or something more masculine like that.
No, I can't do a reply on that because we've never done an editorial about meter maids.
Oh, well, then here's my card. If you say anything later that I can speak out in opposition to, just give me a call at this number, will you? Except on Tuesdays.
Okay, well, you've been listening to an editorial rebuttal.
Every Tuesday, I pick at a toxic chemical dump. Now, they're just throwing that stuff away down there when poor people could use it.
Well, I can see you've given that issue about as much thought as the other matter. So how about leaving before you get into it, huh?
Sure, happy to oblige.
Okay.
But don't forget to call now.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye. Well, our little company is ready to quietly steal away now, and that puts another edition of the Bob and Ray Public Radio Show into the time capsule for today.
It was produced for the Radio Foundation by Larry Josephson, who thinks it's the $20,000 bill that doesn't have a president's picture on it.
Marjorie Van Holleren was associate producer. Paul Taubman made the music, and Al Schaefer the sound effects.
Our engineers were Mike Moran and Joe Lopes, who just may be the only two people here who know the difference between a kilowatt and a megahertz.
Production assistant was Stuart Zagner.
Funding in part by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Through NPR's Satellite Program Development Fund.
Okay, this is Ray Goulding reminding you to write if you get work.
Bob Elliott reminding you to hang by your thumb.
For a free picture of Bob and Ray, send a stamped, self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116. That's Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116. This program was independently produced by the Radio Foundation.